At this point, I feel like just the whole conversation about Lucifero is like beating a dead horse. He just did not really put out the performance I know a lot of people were really hoping for, and it as an issue really I think became a problem when you really think about the fact that Black Clover was once again then left without a pretty competent like main villain. Like even right now, like we know that the whole setting doesn't mean it's over because Aldra Malika is right there, but we don't really know what he's gonna do, but we don't also like Lucifero. This is the first time this guy's really set out on the battlefield, and this is a character we've been hyped up and given a lot of stuff about. Granted, he's at 50%. He's not at his full power, and we know that a percentage is like each one is a pretty significant boost, just from like stuff like the whole Monica and Noelle first fight. So we can look and say like, yeah, whenever he comes out at full power, obviously he'll be more, be way more of a significant level of power. But it's like he like has even here, like he didn't use his gravity very creatively, and when like you have a pretty much your whole arsenal is just trying to punch and stomp on people, and you're not even using your gravity in like a cool way. And this is the point when you're gonna lose. Like he looked really clean when he was like doing some of the martial arts moves, but why was he not using his gravity more of a intelligent way of manipulation? Why was he not really putting out what you would expect of somebody who should be like a master of this kind of magic, the highest degree? Like the way that it really felt like, at least as of right now, when you look at it, it's Dante looked like he was the best with gravity magic because he didn't use his other magic that much, and he liked using gravity magic way more. Whereas Morris, it looked like Morris was just using gravity supplementary, and it's just like with Lucifero, maybe we'll see more next time, but it seems like he's just so powerful that he didn't need to ever get into like a crazy like level of complexity with his gravity magic. And maybe that'll be for the future, but I mean, like for right now, it just looks bad on him. It makes it look like he's a beginner almost with his abilities, because like all he's really doing is flying around, punching and stomping, and just using gravity in its most basic form. He's not doing anything really creative. He could have done a lot of stuff. He could have literally just said okay to and just tried to grip him with gravity from long distance and throw him and get rid of him. Like he could have just done that. There were so many things that he could have done from just the standpoint of having a free power like gravity, manipulating the ground and making like complex shapes and constructs. He didn't really do anything like that. And then the fact that like he didn't make any singularities. So when you look at Lucifero right now, I think that he is a villain. It just did not perform. And part of the issue, I think, with Black Clover, I mentioned this a little bit on Josuke's stream, is Black Clover right now doesn't have that much of that big overarching knowledge of bad guys. Like when you look at a lot of series, a good amount of antagonists and forces at this point in the story. When you get to like long ongoing series and series that Tabata, we know that Tabata is said is just fine making Black Clover as long as like Bleach and Naruto, if they let him. He has the mindset of it in going large scale. Is you should know like an idea of the large scale bad guys and people still that are threats somewhere out there in the world. And there are times where obviously you don't know everything. Like as time goes on in the series, you will discover new big threats and whatnot. But there's usually like an idea of more than whatever, like, okay, here's our current threat. Oh, there's at least maybe one more out there that we know about. So, because the issue is right now with the string of Dante, Morris to Lucifero, we had who we kept thinking was going to be like the primary ongoing villain, who was going to be the big threat, defeated way more abruptly. And like Dante and Morris were obviously more like Dante. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be the big villain, but I think just intentionally made it seem that way. Morris ended up being more used as a sacrificial plot device for the second gate. And then Lucifero though logically would have been the big boss, because since we found out about him, he was the logical character to be pulling the strings and to be the head of the threat level that we're getting. Granted, once again, we only got it at 50%, but that's only power level wise. That's only off his raw power. Things like, again, his level of manipulation with gravity magic should have been way better. We should have seen, again, what should be a master of this magic, what should be the highest level of this magic. And I guess like you can like look at the twins, and the twins didn't do anything complex with their abilities, and they look kind of but it's like when you look at Zagrid and Magicula, and it's like, well, you look at how complex their magic is, you know that the devils aren't just, we're so powerful that we're gonna overpower everything. So when you look at just kind of like where he's at now, and I don't know, Lucifero just not looking too good. I think a lot of the value is going to be, the falling events. If Lucifero was sent back to the underworld, kind of like Magicula, what's Aldramalik going to do? Where's the art going to go from here? Like, there's stuff that like I still have high hopes for. If Aldramalik just gets up and leaves, the arc will end happy for me, because that's when something I wanted a devil just to do was just to say, oh, I don't have to fight you guys. What reason do I have to fight? I'm out. I'm going to leave. Like if the Twin Devils were smart enough, they would have done that. It would have just been like, I have no purpose. I have no purpose here to fight you. I'm gonna leave. I just gonna go do my plans immediately, and just go off and actually start to get prepped. Maybe Aldramalik could be that guy. I would hope so, considering he clearly knows about how anti-magic and how it works now. So hopefully he just says that he's gonna fuck off. I don't imagine he's just gonna. Like, maybe he'll take somebody with him. Maybe he'll kill somebody. I don't know. Maybe we'll see something going on soon with Yami and Noct. But I would assume that the Aldramalik is going to probably just leave. Unless they're going to keep trying to open gates. I don't know what's going to happen to that. This is the fourth Zogratis sibling. Aren't gonna start up. There's like questions, obviously, of like more of the direction I have after this chapter. Of like where like the story is going to be heading immediately after this. Because it's like, our character's going to have time to rest? Are they going to do more gates? Because everybody's like beaten to hell and pretty much done. Unless we're going to start getting more characters show up, I don't really know what they're going to do. I think it'd be really cool if Aldramalik was like this whole time working on opening the third gate, and say like the next, like this would be like the ideal chapter for me. Because he knew that, like, say he started opening the gate, that's just something he knows how to do. Like, he can work on some of the gates or something. Well, whatever reason his reason is that he's able to do this, whatever the story reason that he's able to keep opening the gates, right? So he's still doing it. But he knew that, like, he couldn't, if he went to go help Lucifero, he wouldn't be able to actually get the gate open within the time he wanted to. And so it's like, oh, well, maybe he's clapping because he's like, oh, you were able to do it within the time frame of me getting the gate open, but now I'm going to open it. And it's like, maybe you have a point where then reinforcements could show up and like they retreat. And it's like a point more of the characters who aren't beaten to hell are going to get more spotlight. Maybe we can get other big characters from out in the burst, like Mars, the Witch Queen. We could get Ladros. Maybe like what is it, like pretty much just any characters we can find just that were relevant, especially also before the time skip. You can have the time skip and stuff to them as well, and at least make them capable enough to fight low level bad guys and whatnot. But like there's enough characters that we haven't used that they can have, not like directly just like run over a third gate kind of level of force, but enough to like say hold back a not super serious enemy. Like say that the Supreme Devils, like another Supreme Devil comes out, so you have Aldramalik, another one, and they're kind of more just, discussing things, maybe enjoying their time outside a little bit. We can get some content with them as devils. Like I would love to see like a scene where it's just those two talking, so we can see a conversation between two devils instead of devils talking to humans, because obviously most of them are talking down to them as if they're worms and whatnot. So I think two devils would be really cool, especially like second gate rank, third gate rank. It would be close enough that we can have they can have a back and forth, and we could see these characters in more depth, and maybe the others we could see more mid-rank and high-rank devils show up, and characters like fight them to where they could get spotlight, and we could have cool fights with them without needing to have more Supreme Devil fights or more big people fights. Because you can have fights obviously at like lower levels. You just need to have context of why it's set up like this, why you're focused on this one, who are the characters involved, and they can definitely do that. I think right now my problem when it comes to really like how defeating Lucifero really like sets me in my opinion of the series is it makes Asta, like true devil Asta, true devil form Asta, so much of a threat right now that like I don't know the third gate devil and Aldramalik would really do. If, you know, the second Asta gets healed, because it's like, think about it, Asta gets healed, gets his 30 minutes up and gets recovered. What devil is going to come out that he's not going to be able to go up against? Because not even the idea of Asta fighting him, because it's like you also take into account this is a war, so they're not just going to be like, oh, Asta's here, let's just let him do everything. They're gonna be in the fight on top of that. So like you would have to have a devil that is more than like could do well more than just 1v1 Asta, because you would have to be counting Asta and friends like Lucifero is going against right now. There's a lot of those kind of questions, I think, with the direction. I think a lot of people have more of a problem with. If this was, say, like the second gate devil, say this was the second gate devil instead, and then Lucifero was sitting out and waiting, I think it'd be a completely different tone. I think it'd be a completely different tone from the fan base, because it'd be like, oh, wow, it's like everything just to beat that guy, but we know the biggest boss guy is right there. I think that would, like, it'd be, if it was in reverse and we're like, oh, Aldramalik isn't too cool, like, instead, but Lucifero was still right there looking to be, you know, the powerful, badass, big boss character, it'd be one of those things where it's like, we still have the tension, we still have the weight of, like, a threat character overhead of the heroes, of the protagonists. Again, Aldramalik is right there. We don't know what he's going to do. Like, he seemed to just kind of be enjoying himself. Like, could he be, like I said, opening up another gate? Could he have some plan going on? Or, like, what is he exactly going to do? The next couple chapters are super intriguing, because I think they're going to really give us a tone and idea of where things are going to at least be starting to head. And I think that I very much think that if Tabata really wants to get a good tone, he needs to really like give us an idea of Aldramalik's character next chapter, and either have him pretty much end like the battle where he's just gonna leave and go do something else, and then he's safe for later and the characters can kind of finally rest, or he needs to have Aldramalik immediately start being a threat, to being like, well, I guess I gotta do stuff now, and just starts wreaking havoc. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like with his character he can easily fix a lot of the problems that a lot of the fan base has, because the tension and the tone and the vibe, I think, is the thing that hurts the most. And that's the thing that becomes more worrisome. And I mentioned in, I think it was in my stream, where I said if I could change one thing about Black Clover, I would definitely slow down the power level climb. Because like Asta just seems like he's climbing the ranks too fast. Because as of right now, there's nobody in the Black Clover world that we've seen that is stronger than True Devil Union Asta. Because it's not like when Asta defeated Zagreus, it's like he was definitely strong, but there were characters clearly stronger than Asta, people that we knew about, where it's like there are higher ranked devils up and coming, but like Asta was on 5 seconds? 5 seconds out of 5 minutes? Like Asta coming back, like he should be able to demolish, unless he's going to be KO'd for a while and not going to come back until we're at like gate 5 or 6 or something. I don't really know what exactly is going to be the threat. And I think that's kind of like the thing that's a little bit of an issue. And I think it's gotten a little bit runaway. And Asta especially, I think it becomes a little bit more dangerous because of how anti-magic works in the verse. And one thing I want to close out, because I really like this idea, and I might do a short video on why I think that it's important for Black Clover to get, is I feel like after Devils, well, one, I think Tabata needs to introduce other big threats besides Devils, like giants, or like, was it Niflheim? I can't remember. Like, depends on what he wants to do, like what mythology he wants to dip into, right? But he should, my opinion, he should add 2 more big races equal to the devils. They don't have to be like the angels or the gods. I don't think they have to do that. I think he should add 2 more big mythological races, something like giants and dragons or something. Easy thing to work with, or whatever he decides to do. He can pick Manticore, so I don't care. But he should pick one, and one of the races he needs to pick, I think, needs to have a similar build to kind of like how Lucifero is, where Lucifero has that very high level of physical strength. But I think the characters should be kind of more like how the dragons and the Aetherius are in Fairy Tail, where they can use magic. They don't need magic. So, but they have their own innate things, and there's on top of that, like something like dragons have their own species power system, their own strengths and whatnot. Like if say you had say I'll just use giants or something, or something like Cyclops. Actually, I'll just use something like a little extra. Like say there's a Cyclops race or something, or whatever you want to put it as the substitution, and they're using magic against Asta. Asta ends up, anti-magicking it out, and then they're like, oh, shit, that takes out, like, you have something that counters ability. Luckily, I have something else I can use. Like, they have their own species ability, or their own body itself is physically really strong and durable, and their species are just, they're jacked and can actually fight back or do their own things. Because I think that's something that Black Clover really has as an issue, and we run into it right now with the Devils, because they're pretty much like pure magical beings. Like I know like there's little stuff with negative mana and whatnot. Like the more like given way more serious specific context, but when you think about devils in just kind of like a TLDR, they are magic beings and made of magic within a magic verse who use magic. So Asta is just such a natural predator to them that his climb is so much more of a threat. Whereas, I'll just use this comparison. I'm not comparing Fairy Tail to Black Clover. It's more of the idea of something in it, like the dragons. You put a dragon against Asta, he uses magic, they Asta cancel it. They're like, okay, cool. I still have literally just my arms. I can crush you. And we know Asta in how he works, even still, as we saw with Lucifero, until Asta got anti-magic potent enough to overcome that 50% Lucifero. But if you have the physical strength to overcome him, you can still beat him. So if we have characters where Asta can still counter one aspect to him, Asta would still be pressed back by, say, like their physical prowess and just fortitude of their body and whatnot. Because that would also push something that Asta is weak in and make Asta better at. Because that was something I was hoping with Lucifero, but with Lucifero, it was still magically set. So once Asta shut off his magic, like once Asta passes that potency threshold, he can kind of just null people like that. And Lucifero, like he lost that advantage. So if like instead of it being a magic induced strength, they have magic but their strength is natural, then Asta would still be it'd be like a comparison. Actually, use another one. Because like technically, like if you do energy equalization with like One Piece, you wouldn't be able to equalize stuff like devil fruits because it's more like a genetic thing, whereas something like hockey would work. So like say Asta used anti-magic on Luffy or somebody like that. You could argue his anti-magic could cancel the hockey, but that's just one thing. Like Luffy would still have all of his physical strength and it would just be able to just pummel him into the ground. Something like that I think needs to be in Black Clover. And this rant has been a little bit longer than I planned, but I think it's something for the good of the series. Granted, it doesn't have to be like any of these things I mentioned. I think it just like Tabata needs to establish a way to keep Asta's anti-magic trait relevant, but don't make it the end-all solution to scenarios. Just because once we get to a point with Lucifero, the solution was only pretty much just enhance Asta. So like if Tabata had laid out other things, like say, like one theory people had was, oh, the way that Yami was transformed, that's where Lucifero's devil heart is. They're gonna have to kill Yami. So if like it was something like that, it'd be like, okay, that's another avenue that we could go. If there were multiple ways that Tabata set up the scenario could end, if there was an escape way that they could set up, if there was a way that they could convince Lucifero to stop, like if there were other avenues that the whole setting could go. But once we got to the point where Lucifero just said like, okay, I'm just gonna kill you. I'm serious now. Like, and I acknowledge you as beings that will take my anger. Once we get to that point, it's like, okay, their only option really is to defeat him. And the only real way that they could accomplish that with what was set up was pretty much anti-magic or dark magic. And I felt like, from what we understood, it was probably going to be anti-magic just from the setup with like the value of more of Asta and Libe's stuff than Yami's value in the fight. I think makes sense. But anyway, yeah, so like I said, this chapter, like most of what I had to say is more of like kind of the context around my thoughts on the broadness of like what this chapter kind of makes me think towards, and again the direction and the way that I think the series and this arc and the next following couple chapters really should be going down. And in my hopes, at least. Like I said, I've been following Black Clover for a long time. I've been here since the Spade arc was still coming out, and the fan translations were calling him Asta and Juno. And I just want the good stuff for Black Clover. And the villains lately have been like, we've had cool villains, but it's like every time we get a cool villain, they get killed off. Like we look at not technically, Megicula got sent away. Same thing with probably what's gonna happen with Lucifero. But it's like we get them out of the way, and it's like, but their threat level is no longer present. So, what's gonna where's the arc gonna go after that for this? Like we're mowing through them too fast. I think was part of the problem, and that's when I think the problems with power progression. I keep saying that I'm not finished, but one more thing. It'd be like if the Dark Disciples were stronger than they were actually presented. Like imagine if the Dark Disciples, like it took instead, Asta could 1v1 them, but the smaller characters, it took groups to fight them. Like it took Luck plus 2 other people to fight Svecking or whatever. And the Dark Disciples were not like beaten, not like something that we had to have as much focus on. But like say once we got to the invasion, we didn't immediately get to the fight with Dark Triad. We got 1v1s with Dark Disciples. We could see some of the characters like after True Magic and stuff, maybe then Luck and those characters could 1v1 a Dark Disciple. And then we could see like, it takes a couple Dark Disciples to kind of even fight a captain at regular, but we could see the captains put in effort and topple them and stuff. They're like, the Dark Disciples, I think, were a problem in like how they're handled because they were introduced obviously as that gap between the generic one that Asta, no diffs prior to the time skip to the Dark Triad, and they were beaten way too fast and made irrelevant way too fast. So right when we got to the invasion, they just got right to the Dark Triad fights, and we've had pretty much just been fighting. We've been just in boss fights instead of boss fights, because you need to have that build up of tension, whereas we just keep having these big battles. And these big boss characters who we were all expecting to last way longer end up being thrown out. Not necessarily. Like some Xenon Megicula, I think, did way better than what some people probably regularly give them credit for. But it's like they got taken out of the story, at least as of right now, way too quickly. So yeah, anyway. Other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. From that, appreciate it. Subscribe, thank you for listening. Bye.